is derived not from the surrounding atmosphere, but from the bosom of the soil itself, where it is stored up as in an enormous stove. And on the bromeliads, grass plantains, orchids, cacti, and in short all the parasites which formed a little forest beneath the large one, many marvelous insects were they tempted to pluck as though they had been genuine blossoms, nestors with blue wings like shimmering watered silk, laelu butterflies reflexed with gold and striped with fringes of green, agrippina moths 10 inches long with leaves for wings, marabunda bees like living emeralds set in sockets of gold, and legions of lampyrons or pyrophorus coleopters, valagumas with breastplates of bronze, and green elytrae with yellow light pouring from their eyes, who, when the night comes, illuminate the forest with their many-colored scintillations. "What wonders!" repeated the enthusiastic girl. "You are at home, Minha, or at least you say so," said Benito, "and that is the way you talk of your riches." "Sneer away, little brother," replied Minha. "Such beautiful things are only lent to us, is it not so, Manoel? They come from the hand of the Almighty and belong to the world." "Let Benito laugh on, Minha," said Manoel. "He hides it very well, but he is a poet himself when his time comes, and he admires as much as we all do all these beauties of nature. Only when his gun is on his arm, good by to poetry." "Then be a poet now," replied the girl. "I am a poet," said Benito. "Oh, nature enchanting, etc." We may confess, however, that in forbidding him to use his gun, Minha had imposed on him a genuine privation. There was no lack of game in the woods, and several magnificent opportunities he had declined with regret. In some of the less wooded parts, in places where the brakes were tolerably spacious, they saw several pairs of ostriches, of the species known as naudus, from 4 to 5 feet high, accompanied by their inseparable seriemas, a sort of turkey, infinitely better from an edible point of view than the huge birds they escort. "See what that wretched promise costs me!" sighed Benito, as, at a gesture from his sister, he replaced under his arm the gun which had instinctively gone up to his shoulder. "We ought to respect the seriemas," said Manoel, "for they are great destroyers of the snakes." "Just as we ought to respect the snakes," replied Benito, "because they eat the noxious insects, and just as we ought the insects, because they live on smaller insects more offensive still. At that rate we ought to respect everything." But the instinct of the young sportsman was about to be put to a still more rigorous trial. The woods became of a sudden full of game. Swift stags and graceful roebucks scampered off beneath the bushes, and a well-aimed bullet would have assuredly have stopped them. Here and there turkeys showed themselves with their milk and coffee-colored plumage, and peccaries, a sort of wild pig highly appreciated by lovers of venison, and agoutis, which are the hares and rabbits of Central America, and tatus, belonging to the order of edentates, with their scaly shells of patterns of mosaic. And truly Benito showed more than virtue, and even genuine heroism, when he came across some tapirs, called antas in Brazil, diminutives of the elephant, already nearly undiscoverable on the banks of the upper Amazon and its tributaries, pachyderms so dear to the hunters for their rarity, so appreciated by the gourmands for their meat, superior far to beef, and above all for the protuberance on the nape of the neck, which is a morsel fit for a king. His gun almost burned his fingers, but faithful to his promise he kept it quiet. But yet, and he cautioned his sister about this, the gun would go off in spite of him, and probably register a master stroke in sporting annals, if within range there should come a tamandoa asa, a kind of large and very curious ant-eater. Happily the big ant-eater did not show himself. Neither did any panthers, leopards, jaguars, guepars, or cougars, called indifferently ounces in South America, and to whom it is not advisable to get too near. "After all," said Benito, who stopped for an instant, "to walk is very well, but to walk without an object—" "Without an object?" replied his sister. "But our object is to see, to admire, to visit for the last time these forests of Central America, which we shall not find again in Para, and to bid them a fast farewell." "Ah! An idea!" It was Lina who spoke. "An idea of Lina's can be no other than a silly one," said Benito, shaking his head. "It is unkind, brother," said Minha, "to make fun of Lina when she has been thinking how to give our walk the object which you have just regretted it lacks." "Besides, Mr. Benito, I am sure my idea will please you," replied the mulatto. "Well, what is it?" asked Minha. "You see that liana?" And Lina pointed to a liana of the cipos kind, twisted round a gigantic sensitive mimosa, whose leaves, light as feathers, shut up at the least disturbance. "Well?" said Benito. "I proposed," replied Minha, "that we try to follow that liana to its very end." "It is an idea, and it is an object," observed Benito, "to follow this liana, no matter what may be the obstacles, thickets, underwood, rocks, brooks, torrents, to let nothing stop us, not even—" "Certainly you are right, brother," said Minha. "Lina is a trifle absurd." "Come on, then," replied her brother. "You say that Lina is absurd, so as to say that Benito is absurd to approve of it." "Well, both of you are absurd if that will amuse you," returned Minha. "Let us follow the liana." "Are you not afraid?" said Manoel. "Still objections!" shouted Benito. "Ah, Manoel, you would not speak like that if you were already on your way and Minha was waiting for you at the end." "I am silent," replied Manoel. "I have no more to say. I obey. Let us follow the liana." And off they went as happy as children home for their holidays. This vegetable might take them far if they determined to follow it to its extremity, like the thread of Ariadne, as far almost as that which the heiress of Minos used to lead her from the labyrinth, and perhaps entangle them more deeply. It was in fact a creeper of the salsis family, one of the cipos known under the name of the red chapicanga, whose length sometimes measures several miles, but, after all, they could leave it when they liked. The cipo passed from one tree to another without breaking its continuity, sometimes twisting round the trunks, sometimes garlanding the branches, here jumping from a dragon tree to a rosewood, then from a gigantic chestnut, the Bertholletia excelsa, to some of the wine palms, bacabas, whose branches have been appropriately compared by Agassiz to long sticks of coral flecked with green. Here round tucumas, or ficuses, capriciously twisted like centenarian olive trees, and of which Brazil had 54 varieties; here round the kinds of euphorbias which produce caoutchouc, gualtes, noble palm trees, with slender, graceful, and glossy stems, and cacao trees, which shoot up of their own accord on the banks of the Amazon and its tributaries, having different melastomas, some with red flowers, and others ornamented with panicles of whitish berries. But the halts, the shouts of cheating, when the happy company thought they had lost their guiding thread, for it was necessary to go back and disentangle it from the knot of parasitic plants. "There it is!" said Lina. "I see it." "You are wrong," replied Minha. "That is not it. That is a liana of another kind." "No, Lina is right," said Manoel. "No, Lina is wrong," Benito would naturally return. Hence highly serious, long continued discussions in which no one would give in. Then the black on one side and Benito on the other would rush at the trees and clamber up to the branches encircled by the cipo, so as to arrive at the true direction. Now nothing was assuredly less easy in that jumble of knots, among which twisted the liana in the middle of bromelias. Caratas, armed with their sharp prickles, orchids with rosy flowers and violet lips the size